For all practical purposes in a psychic attack, it is the immediate magnetic field that has to be considered. The best method to deal with this is to make a magic circle. A mere banishing by itself is not so effective as a banishing performed within a circle, because the circle will effectually prevent the banished forces from flowing back again. There are various methods of performing this operation, but the principle of all valid ones is the same. The formula I will give will be found effectual for all ordinary conditions. Extraordinary conditions can only be dealt with by a person who has had experience. In making the magic circle, the operator stands upright facing east. He faces east because the magnetic current on which he proposes to operate runs from east to west. His first procedure must be to steady his own vibrations and purify his aura. In order to do this, he makes the Kabbalistic cross on breast and brow. Touching his forehead he says, "To thee, O God," touching his solar plexus, "be the kingdom," touching his right shoulder, and the power, touching his left shoulder, and the glory, clasping his hands, unto the ages of the ages, Amen. By this formula the operator affirms the power of God as sole creator, and supreme law of the universe, to which all things must bow, and he establishes this formula magnetically in his aura by the action of making the sign of the cross upon himself. This sign is not an exclusively Christian symbol, and can be used as readily by the Jew as the churchman, for it is the equi-limbed cross of nature that is being used, not the Calvary cross, of which the shaft is double the length of the crossbar, and which is the symbol of sacrifice. The equi-limbed cross refers to the 4 quarters of the globe and the 4 elements, and the formula associated with it proclaims the dominion of God over these, and thereby occultly formulates his kingdom within the sphere of the operator. The operator next imagines himself to be clasping in his right hand a large cross-handled sword, such as is depicted in pictures of crusaders. He holds it point upright and says, "In the name of God I take in hand the sword of power for defense against evil and aggression," and imagines himself to be towering up to twice his natural height, a tremendous armed and mailed figure, vibrating with the force of the power of God, with which he has been charged by his formulation of the sword of power. He now proceeds to draw the magic circle upon the floor with the point of the sword of power, and he should see in his imagination a line of flame following the point of the sword, consisting of small flames, such as spring up when methylated spirit is spilt and ignited, but of a pale golden color. A little practice should enable this circle of light to be formulated effectually. Keep on going round the circle until it is formulated. The circle should always be drawn diasil, that is to say, from east to south, to west, to north, in the same way that the hands of a clock would move were the clock laid face upwards on the floor. The contrary way is Widdishin's, the way in which the witches danced at the sabbats. The diasil movement affirms the rule of God's law in nature, because it is the way of the sun. The Widdishin's movement repudiates God's rule over nature by moving against the sun. In resisting an occult attack, the whole formula should be tuned to the keynote of asserting God's dominion over all existence, the aim of the operator being to align himself with cosmic law, and cause the power of God to deal with the interference. The circle being formulated, the operator, ceasing to visualize the sword, but still visualizing the circle, clasps his hands in prayer, and raising them above his head towards the east, prays, "May the mighty Archangel Raphael protect me from all evil approaching from the east." Turning to the south he repeats the same formula in prayer to Gabriel. Turning to the west, he invokes Michael. Turning to the north he invokes Uriel. Facing to the east again, and thus completing the circle, he repeats the formula of the Kabbalistic cross. This formulation of the magic circle is especially valuable for protecting the sleeping place, the circle being drawn around the bed. It is not necessary to move about the room, or shift the furniture in order to draw the circle. It will be formulated wherever it is visualized to be. It is necessary to reaffirm this circle each time the tides change. That is to say, a circle made after sundown will hold good till sunrise, and a circle made after sunrise will maintain its potency till sunset. After the circle has been affirmed a number of times in the same place, its influence will persist for a considerable period, but it is advisable to reformulate it morning and evening during the active phase of an attack. Incense burnt within the circle is very helpful, but care has to be exercised in the choice of an incense. Joss sticks of unknown composition should never be used, as they are usually compounded with a view to assisting manifestation. Good quality church incense, such as can be bought at most church furnishers, is safe and satisfactory, because it is compounded according to traditional recipes. Cheaper qualities may not fulfill these conditions. In dealing with elementals or non-human entities, the pentagram, or pentalapha, is the best weapon. This is a 5-pointed star drawn in a particular way. Pointing the first and second fingers of the right hand, and folding the others into the palm, and touching their tips with the thumb, proceed to draw the pentagram in the air, keeping the elbow stiff and swinging the arm at full length. Start with the right arm across the body, the hand about the level of the left hip, the extended fingers pointing downwards and outwards. Swing it upwards, as if drawing a straight line in the air, until the fingers point straight upwards above the head at arm's length. Now sweep it down again, keeping the elbow stiff, until the hand occupies the corresponding position upon the right side to that from which it started on the left. You have now drawn a gigantic V upside down. Next, swing the hand across the body on a rising incline, until it is stretched on a level with the left shoulder, pointing to the left. Bring it across the body horizontally until it is in the same position on the right, fingers pointing away from the body. Now swing it downwards across the body, till the hand has come back to the point by the left hip whence it started. This is an exceedingly potent sign. The value of the 5-pointed star, the symbol of humanity, is widely known among occultists, but its potency depends upon the manner in which it is drawn. The method I have given is the correct one for banishing. When it is not possible to seal the room, it is a very useful thing to be able to seal the aura. Stand upright and cross yourself, by touching forehead, breast, right shoulder and left shoulder, saying, "By the power of the Christ of God within me, whom I serve with all my heart, and with all my soul and with all my strength," extend your hands forward as far as you can reach at the level of the solar plexus, fingertips touching, then sweep them round to the back and touch the fingertips together again behind you, saying, "I encompass myself about with the divine circle of his protection, across which no mortal error dares to set its foot." This is an old monkish formula. It is very effectual, but its potency only lasts about 4 hours. There are various other devices which are useful, not only in dealing with psychic attacks, but in any case of undue influence or domination. If you have to interview persons whose influence you find overwhelming, imagine that they are separated from you by a sheet of plate glass. You can see them and hear them, but their magnetism cannot reach you. Visualize this sheet of glass until it appears to you to be absolutely tangible. If you have to associate with persons who distress you, but are not actually interviewing them, imagine that they are separated from you by a brick wall, and say to yourself, "You just aren't there. I can't see you or hear you, and you simply don't exist." When dealing with a person who saps your vitality, interlace your fingers, and lay your folded hands upon your solar plexus, keeping your elbows pressed against your sides. Keep your feet touching each other. You have thus contacted all your own terminals and made of your body a closed circuit. No magnetism will go out from you while you maintain this attitude. Your friend will probably complain of your lack of sympathy, however kindly you may speak. If anyone tries to dominate you by gazing intently into the eyes, do not attempt to return gaze for gaze, for this only leads to an exhausting struggle in which you may get the worst of it, but look steadily at the spot just above the base of their nose, between the inner ends of the eyebrows. If you are merely dealing with an ordinary bully, you will immediately have the upper hand. If, however, your antagonist has knowledge of mind power, you may not be able to dominate him, but he certainly will not be able to dominate you, and the result will be a stalemate. Do not attempt to dominate him, merely keep your eye on the spot and wait for him to weary of his attempt to dominate you. You will not have long to wait. By the use of the methods described in the preceding pages, any person of normal courage and mentality, provided he avoids drugs, alcohol and long periods without food, can, if he does not lose his nerve, wear down any ordinary psychic attack. Or, in the case of attacks of abnormal potency, can at least ensure himself time to make good his escape and seek help. Psychic trouble not infrequently arises owing to the formation of an undesirable rapport. In order to understand the nature of this problem, we must consider the whole subject of rapport. We have already considered in some detail the question of telepathic suggestion. Rapport might be considered as the passive aspect of that of which telepathic suggestion is the active aspect. It forms, in fact, the basic condition necessary for telepathic suggestion to take place. Two people who are in rapport might be described as astral Siamese twins. Although the physical bodies are independent units, the astral bodies are linked in such a manner that there is free circulation of astral force between them, just as the circulatory system of the mother is connected through the umbilical cord with the unborn child, and the same blood circulating freely through both. This fact explains many important occult phenomena. It is the real key to marriage, and explains many facts in the relationship of parent and child. It also accounts for some important aspects of the relation of pupil and teacher. But not only is it possible for a rapport to be established between two individuals, but between an individual and a group. This fact plays an important part in all fraternity work. It is also possible to establish rapport between a human being and other kingdoms of nature, with discarnate entities, superhuman beings, and in fact, with any form of life with which an individual can form a sympathetic understanding. There must be some ground of sympathy as the basis for the formation of a rapport, but once formed, it can be developed almost indefinitely. If the rapport is perceived as a line of light, a cord, or any similar form, attached to the solar plexus, the forehead, or any other part of the body, the best way of severing the rapport is to forge a magical weapon and cut it. In fact, if a rapport is felt, the first thing to do is to visualize the cord and try to see where it attaches. The solar plexus is the commonest place. Next, formulate the cross-handled sword as already described, and invoke God's blessing upon it. Then visualize a flaming torch, and invoke the power of the Holy Ghost, whose symbol it is. Now with the sword hack through the cord or ray until every shred is severed. Then sear the stump with the consecrated fire of the torch, until it shrivels up, and falls off from its point of attachment to your body. After such a severing one must, of course, take the ordinary human precautions to prevent the link being reformed. Refuse to meet the person responsible for its formulation, or to either read or answer letters from him. In fact, cut off physical communications as thoroughly and resolutely as one has cut off astral ones for a period of some months at least. There are occasions, however, when a person is so completely overshadowed and dominated that he cannot perform this operation for himself. The magical operation of substitution can then be performed, if he can find a friend ready to undertake the task. In order to perform this operation, the two friends agree that it shall be done, but the one who is to become the substitute does not tell the original victim, when he proposes to undertake the operation, lest that latter should be so completely in the hands of the dominator that he should give the game away involuntarily. Choosing a time at which he is sure his friend is asleep, the substitute concentrates upon him and imagines himself to be standing beside him, and visualizes the cord or ray of the rapport stretching from his friend out into space. If he can visualize its other point of attachment in the dominator, so much the better. He then formulates the sword and the torch as above described, and with these in his hands he imagines himself stepping right through the line of rapport, so as to break it with his body. He must not use either sword or torch for this process, but break it with his own flesh, as it were. Having thus severed it from his friend, he should then go for it with sword and torch with all his strength as it tries to enwrap him, as it assuredly will do, for it resembles nothing so much as the tentacle of an octopus. He should go for it hammer and tongs, making up in zeal what he lacks in knowledge, until it has had enough, and begins to curl up and withdraw. The combat, of course, takes place in the imagination, but if a clear and vivid image is produced it will be effectual.